not think that that's directly related to marriage rates?
Well, I think it's directly related to culture as well, because not to say that Black women or Black people don't believe, like, don't have abortions, but I think culturally they are, you're not supposed to get one. So if you end up pregnant, it's your responsibility, and you take care of the child, especially when we're looking at it from a religious standpoint in this, in America, especially in a Black community, everybody is, Christian. And so you don't fix one mistake by making another. So yeah, you end up pregnant. You
minority women do lead in
you don't necessarily
minority women do lead in baby deletions though.
Huh?
Don't minority women lead in deletions?
When you say minority, are you speaking of a specific
black women lead all women, and then it's Hispanic women, then it's white women.
For real?
Yes.
I didn't look that up.
And every other is only like 8%. So right now, as I'm looking at it from the Guthmaster Institute, most abortions in the United States are obtained by minority women, 37% Black, 34% Hispanic, 22% white. All other people lumped together, 8%.
Well, I would agree with that.
Go under that too.
Real fast.
Access to birth control, the way things are.
No, I don't think.
No, it does. Hold on. Healthcare, all of those things fall under that. Even education around sex, all of those things play a part. I had to do this in the class when I took.
What about Medicaid?
Absolutely. I'm just.
I think of this. Look at this right here. This is what I think the issue is. Everybody else prioritizes family except for us.
Thank you, Chan.
So
I agree.
White people get married at early ages. They don't have time to be baby mamas because they got a husband. You know what I'm saying? They're not waiting to 35 to get married. They getting married in their 20s. Who has time to have a baby mama, baby daddy? Because you're getting married. But when you're waiting until your 30s, 35, 40, that's more time to mess this thing up.
Yep.
Okay? Yep. If you're not getting married, you're having sex, the chance of you having a kid out of wedlock is super great. It just is what it is. So if you go back to the original rule, if you want to have sex, you can't refrain from sex, get married. What is the freaking the problem? Everybody wants to have fun without the responsibility. And then
I love you, Shan.
Surprised when we have these oopsies, and in our community is all.
Let's throw a party. Shan took the red pill. Oh my God. Oh, let's have a party. Hold on, I'll be right.
Whatever. You have this party of all these kids, but what did you think was going to happen?
So, Shan, I hear what you're saying in terms of like family being prioritized in terms of like those communities. But if we're honest, the statistics don't actually support that, right? If we're talking about the average woman in the US getting married around the age of like 29 to what is it, 29 or 30, and then Black women
29.7 or something like that.
Okay, perfect. So they're not really getting married that much younger than Black women in terms of like statistics, right?
Well, 52% of Black women have, when you're looking at the stats of how many Black women get married, that makes a difference.
But
if you're looking at age, but it's just taking into consideration the people who've gotten married. But if you look at the number of people who are actually getting married, that makes a difference.
So I hear what you're saying, right? But I do agree with Mistaken about like the education around birth control, the accessibility of birth control. But then here's the other part of it, right? Like the scientific part of it is that the testing in terms of the efficiency and effectiveness with these contraceptives is typically done on people that don't necessarily look like us. And because scientifically our genetics are not exactly the same, like there are so many factors outside of just marriage in terms of why people, because here's the other thing, right? If we're going par for socioeconomic status, poor white women are having babies at the same rate as poor Black women.
Yeah.
The thing that differentiates it, right, if we're honest, is the fact that the majority of people who do not look like us are socioeconomically ahead of the curve than we are, right? But if you're going par for par, pound for pound, and making a comparison that's apples to apples and not apples to oranges, it's the same situation. It really is.
It is a poverty thing. Yep. It's a
Right.
poverty thing.
And so when you have the majority of people of color who are living below the poverty line, it's a totally different conversation, right? It really is. And I think that needs to be factored in order to have like an honest conversation about why people aren't getting married and
I
why
will
people
say,
are having
I will
children.
say this though, Inaz, one of the issues that I have in particular, and one I try to speak about a lot in this space, because I understand that too, that it is an apples to oranges comparison, because it is poverty that really creates this atmosphere where people don't take marriage seriously. Men trivialize sex and women trivialize childbirth. In the poverty space, that happens far too often. But what I don't like is that far too many of our women, meaning Black women, carry the poverty mindset into better circumstances. Right? So you will see in upper class levels that women want to birth a child alone and be a single mom in our ranks. That is the issue that I have, because everybody else knows, like we've talked about, image, perception is everything. When I wanted to put my life together in a certain way, even though I was pretty happy, being who I was, I said, damn, if I want a legacy, if I want children, I have to choose an appropriate mother. She has to have an appropriate demeanor. I have to want my daughter to be like her. So you got to slow things down and do it that way. But the modern people, this is what I'm not like a staunch traditionalist because I'm some kind of traditionalist, but nothing else works. But they are trying to convince the world and do things in a certain way that has never been proven to be feasible for either them or the children that they will have as single mothers, and that's a problem for me.
So I'm gonna that's still serious pushback on that, right? Because here's the thing: the same way that women of color inherited feminism from women who lack color, this idea of creating a child out of wedlock, even into middle to upper class, does not originate from us. And I don't think it's necessarily a poverty mindset. I think it is this learned behavior of perceived behavior for that socioeconomic. And here's the other thing to further emphasize that typically only happens with people who are first generation wealth or richness. That doesn't happen to people who are multi-generational, regardless of color, because if you look at those numbers, they're still par for par. First generation women who aren't able to find a husband, who attain a decent amount of wealth, who decide to have a child out of wedlock, they're still pound for pound, right? I think it's a behavior that's learned from one demographic because it gives the illusion that it's acceptable in that socioeconomic tax bracket.